Kwesi Dofu has completed the competitive rebuild and I believe deserves a contract extension. Less because of the free agent class that the Vikings just signed, which is exceptionally good and is the second year in a row that the Vikings have signed what appears to be, of course, we got to play the games, what appears to be a class of free agents that's going to be very impactful for the Vikings. But more so, Kwesi deserves a contract extension because, as he said when he came in here, his goal was to do a competitive rebuild. A rebuild that involved jettisoning large contracts and veteran players, and doing so while maintaining a competitive team and moving forward to create a championship team, hopefully. I contend that he's done that he's succeeded. We're just going to go back and want to remind everybody of what Kwesi said.
Entered free agency, the roster has become more the focus of this building. Our strategic planning has begun with some really spirited conversations with our personnel staff, our coaching staff, our operations staff, and it's been really great to be a part of that collaboration. Kevin, Rob, myself, we take all that information and we came up with a plan. You know, we're all aligned in what our vision is and how we see the needs of this team this year, next year, and overall our whole time horizon. I think when people look at teams, they can sometimes do it in a very binary way. And they ask, are you either all in or are you tearing it down and rebuilding? And I don't really look at the world that way. I kind of try and, the way we look at it is we're trying to navigate both worlds. We're trying to live in today and tomorrow, or the competitive rebuild, however you want to phrase it or market it.
A competitive rebuild, however you want to phrase it or market it, has been successful. Older veterans are pretty much off the team. He's remade this team in his and KOC's image. You've jettisoned a lot of large contracts, enabling you to go out in free agency and have a free agency season like you had this year and last year. Now, there's no doubt that the draft is his Achilles heel as of right now. Can that change? I certainly hope so. And I do think that it will. I think last year's draft was much better than the previous year's draft, which could only be better than the 2022 train wreck of a draft. So we'll see how that goes. He's clearly got the free agency part of this down. The accounting part, Rob Brzezinski, Kwesi have put together a salary cap that finally works for a team that can actually build an entire team. You're not paying 3 or 4 players and then putting the rest of the team together. You're utilizing your entire salary cap to create a full squad. Again, just rolling through the free agents of this year: Byron Murphy, Aaron Jones, Isaiah Rodgers, Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, Javon Hargrave, and Jonathan Allen. Last year was Van Ginkel. There have been a lot of good signings. Now there has to be a lot of good draftings. However, in the stated goal of the ownership and of management of this team, from 2021-22, from the 2022 offseason, when Rick Spielman and Zim were let go, and Kwesi and KOC were brought in, the goal was a competitive rebuild. That year they went to the playoffs with Zim's squad, essentially. They just reran it with a new coach and new GM. They made it to the playoffs. The following year, if Kirk hadn't blown out his Achilles, I'm pretty confident that the Vikings would have been in the playoff hunt, at the very least. And then last year with Sam Darnold, 14 wins. And in those 3 years, casting off all those high contracts that burdened this team in free agency, remaking it into a completely different squad. Zim's team is gone. There's a couple of remnants by player, but most of the team is gone. This is now Kwesi's team. It is a very competitive team. We know as of today this team should be in the playoff hunt this year with a young quarterback. They put the pieces together for a long-term run. All they got to do is start hitting on these draft picks. I know it sounds easier said than done. But due to the goal being achieved of the competitive rebuild, again, words have meaning. Competitive rebuild was to rebuild this team while being competitive. That has been successful. That has been successful. And in free agency, Kwesi has been equally successful. And I believe just because of that, yes, he is faulting on the draft, but he does deserve a contract extension. I believe you need to get your player personnel people in place and mock draft, war room draft, game plan draft, everything you possibly can. Get as many voices in that room as you can speaking up. Let's train Kwesi into making the correct decisions. And let's start drafting correct. If these drafts had hit, a lot of these free agents would be different. We'd be hitting different positions. The one that I can think of easily is Ingram. If we had a serviceable guard, I think we would have gone much farther than we have, especially these last 2 years, because the year prior, Ingram just struggled to the point where he shouldn't have been on the team, and yet he still was. This proves the lack of depth in that position, and that goes to the drafting. That's why it needs to change. But the stated goal of a competitive rebuild has been accomplished. That was your set objective from ownership. You've accomplished that. And in doing so, you've put together a team and an organization that is going to be competing for playoffs and possible championships for years to come, and as a destination organization for free agents and players around the league. That sounds like somebody who needs a contract extension. And I have faith, because I see how you're learning on the job, that you will do better in the draft. I have faith. I really do. Because what you constructed for an organization, I think, is one of the best in the NFL. And I think as the face of that organization going forward, it should be Kwesi. Kwesi and KOC team, I love it. Going forward, I think it's got the potential. A championship would be great. You do know that the state would shut down for a week as it's celebrated, right? I mean, literally it would become a holiday. Hopefully that can happen. I appreciate you coming in and swinging in and listening. If you liked it, hit the like. Even subscribe. Share it with a friend. Tell them, hey, Kwesi did what he was supposed to do. By edict of ownership, he completed that task. There's only one more task to do. Raise that Lombardi.